Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April the 24th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, I'm going to start off with what I think is going to be the news of the week, really. And we're going into week 2 of the spring transfer portal window. And week 1 was, kind of interesting, pretty quiet on the Miami front. No transfers committing or very few guys leaving. I'm expecting that to change this week. I think that we just went through a week where it was kind of like a feel out moment. Who's going to the portal? Who's going to, walk into Mario Cristobal's office and say, hey, coach, it's not really working out for me here. I think I'm going to go into the portal. And it was really relatively quiet. I mean, Jabari Ishmael, I guess, is going to the portal. And am I missing anybody else that declared themselves headed for the exits, Matt? I don't think so. So that means only one spot opened up. Well, we're anticipating, and CaneSport is on serious watch for this, 6 to 9 transfers to get added to this roster here in the next week or two. And they got to come from some, like their spots have got to come from somewhere. So the fact that there weren't volunteers, Matt, to go into the portal, I think is going to create a situation where guys are going to be told that you don't have your scholarship anymore moving forward at Miami. And that's never a happy moment. But I think that this is probably the last go round for this with this roster. I mean, this is round 3 for Mario Cristobal and his new staff. It's just what Mario inherited. It was a incredibly devoid of impact talent roster, and he's trying to turn this program around as quickly as he can, and that means making these hard decisions. And I think they've had 40-something guys go to the portal in the first 14 months or so that they were here. And now I think there's going to be another 5 or 6 or 7 that are going to join that list. That's a lot of roster turnover, Matt, but absolutely necessary while you feel for this next wave of guys that absolutely I do think will happen. It's a byproduct of where the program has been and the struggles that it's had.
Oh, it's pretty funny if we can go back in time. You were saying, the numbers will just sort themselves out. No one's going to be forced out. It'll all just work out. Just magically. Everything will work out fine.
Here we go.
It is what you said. And this is
I just described sorting itself out.
What I predicted a year ago is exactly what happened. Guys are going to be forced out. There's going to have to be a lot of churn, And moving ahead to next year, it's even worse because, again, they have a very small senior class. But you'll say, it'll just work out magically. So great. So anyway, the bottom line here is they do have 4 open spots right now. So they can see, because at the end of the day, Miami might want 6 to 9 or 20 upgrades, because let's face it, I mean, if they could afford enough players to come in and upgrade their talent, they would probably take 20 or 30 players out of the portal. I mean, that's probably true. Because the way this is working is not the way the NCAA meant for it to work. This was not supposed to be free agency on steroids where there's backroom deals with agents, like what happened, we saw last week with Tyler Van Dyke, which, whoever leaked it out, it worked out well for Miami, because once it became public and Tyler wasn't in the portal that Alabama was chasing him, in truth, if Alabama had at that point taken Tyler Van Dyke and paid him a lot of money, there would have had to be some sort of investigation. I mean, there's no way around it, because you can't have it being publicly disclosed that a player on Miami's roster is being courted by Alabama with an NIL deal when he's not even in the portal. It's completely illegal. I mean, the NCAA would have had no choice. So if Miami leaked it to get out there, great. because it would be a genius move, because once it got out there, Alabama could no longer take Tyler Van Dyke, which was fantastic. All these people who are, saying on the message boards conspiracy theories are that Nick Saban is telling Tyler Van Dyke to say publicly, oh, he's staying at Miami, it's all perfect now. But the truth is, once this leaked out, I mean, Alabama would be taking a major risk by having Tyler go into the portal and then paying him a lot of money, essentially, the Alabama boosters, to bring him there, because you can't bring a high-profile quarterback who's starting at one program, an NFL talent, to another program who was never in the portal, and it's out there publicly that Alabama's chasing him. That is clearly going to be an investigation. So, kudos to Miami for making that go away.
Agents doing their job. I mean, and then, like it or not like it, the job of an agent, and now these college players have agents, is to make their clients money and make them more money than they were making before. And if floating the concept of Tyler Van Dyke going to Alabama was going to get Tyler Van Dyke a higher NIL commitment from Miami, which I'm sure it did, then that was what they had to do to get that done. And it's ugly because there's a lot of conflicts I'm seeing, Matt. I mean, I'm seeing these agents that are being allowed out of practices. They're being treated like friends of the program, but then they're not functioning as friends of the program when they're shaking down the collective for more money. So, these are all things that are going to have to be worked out as the months and years of this new NIL world continue, and agents start taking on the more traditional role of NFL agents with these college players. But I find it fascinating. I really do. I just that aspect alone. I watched Tyler's. I was not at a single practice this spring that I didn't see Tyler Van Dyke's representatives in attendance at, and they, from what I know, were out there pretty much almost every single practice. Well, if you're allowed to practice every day, you are a friend of the program. I mean, the media is not allowed out there every single day. I mean, you're getting special privileges that other people do not get. But like I said, when now you're negotiating with Alabama Collective and Miami to get the best deal for your client, which is unquestionably their job, I'm not that's crossing a line, Matt. I mean, I'm sorry. And I've known all those guys for many, many years, and they're very good at what they do, but that's crossing the line in my opinion. And I think it's something that we're going to have to see Mario Cristobal adjust to, as time goes by. So it's kind of interesting.
It's clearly against the rules for an agent. If the player doesn't want to go in the portal, fine. But what the agents are doing is essentially breaking the rules, because that's what agents do. And they're breaking the rules by negotiating behind the scenes. They don't need their players to go in the portal, right? The way this is supposed to work legally is a player leaves a program, goes in the portal, then he's allowed to essentially choose where he wants to go. And NIL deals can be formed at that point, and programs can reach out. What is not within the rules is for, Alabama, Ohio State, whoever, any program, to start reaching out to an agent of a player and say, hey, if your player will leave so-and-so school and come to my school, we have this deal waiting for him. That is not allowed. And that will trigger an investigation. But that's what's started to happen with NIL. And that's why, a lot of coaches were telling me they expected this window of the portal period to just be the top end players essentially seeking free agency. Tons of players going in the portal to seek free agency. What has actually wound up happening is the agents are telling players, don't even bother. I'm just going to negotiate behind the scenes. Whatever offer we get from X, Y, and Z school, we'll present to the school you're at now. And if they match it, great. And if they don't, then you can go in the portal, And schools now are raising money. Miami's trying to raise money for their NIL program. Other schools are doing the same. The money that used to go into infrastructure and, whatever else that would help student athletes, millions of dollars a year now are essentially going to student athletes who are then gone within a year, within 2 years, within 3 years. And that money has disappeared from the program. What used to go to that infrastructure, to go build facilities, to, whatever it might be, academic support staff, millions of dollars a year is what programs now have to spend on NIL to be competitive. That doesn't come out of nowhere. That's booster money that otherwise would go to other things. I know for a fact that at Miami and other schools, boosters are now being asked and accepting to move their NIL, move the money they normally donate to the school as a gift to the school, however the school wants to use it best in the athletic program, to the NIL budget. And that normally would go to benefit the entire 85 scholarship players and the 20 players who are walk-ons. That would normally benefit them in some way because that money goes into the program in some other capacity. But now at every school across the nation, that money is being taken away. And it's exactly the opposite of what the NCAA wanted. What the NCAA wanted was for this to reward every student athlete on a program. What it's done instead is enrich the top 5 or 10% and penalize the rest of that team, because there will be less facilities built at programs. There will be less opportunities academically, whatever it may be, for tutoring, whatever these programs are that schools might have done.
Well, will there, Matt? What school's been cheaper in this regard through the years than Miami? Okay, let's think about that for a minute, right? Miami's been pretty cheap when it came to building facilities and stuff for its athletes, okay? Well, they're committing to a $150 million facility, and the university is going to probably end up having to fund a good portion of that, because like you just said, that you can't just keep going to the same people for everything. And if I'm contributing to the NIL collective, I'm not necessarily going to contribute to the new building too. And especially in Miami, there's only the pool isn't as big as it is at some of these state schools, and the same people are getting hit for everything, for new buildings, for funding for the Hurricane Club, for the Hurricane Club, for basketball. They're getting hit, the same individuals, and there's only maybe 20 to 40 of them are getting hit up for everything, and that's not going to be able to be sustainable forever. And the university is going to have to fund more of its athletic program. There's no doubt about it. They have said they are prepared for that now at Miami. The med school is making an enormous amount of money, and they are now able to budget some of those dollars for athletics, and it's that simple. And they've committed to it. And I'm sure it's been tough on some of the stomachs at the upper echelon of the university. I'm sure there are people that do not like this money being spent on athletics, but athletics is a very important part of the entire university. It is the face of the university in many ways. You look at the Final Four appearance, you look at bowl games, big football games. As great as the med school is, and it's great, probably the greatest thing at the University of Miami, it's not the face of the university the way athletics is, Matt. So I'm not sure that buildings aren't still going to get built. I just think they're going to get built differently.
Well, and everybody wants to know, because at the end of the day, the truth is Miami football fans don't care about the buildings. They just want the team to win. And if Miami does take transfers, they have to be smart about it. They can't, there's a couple of top defensive linemen in the portal. Miami can't afford some of these student athletes. You have a choice. You could take either one or two top guys in the portal and pay them a fortune, or like Gary said, try to take 6 to 9 guys you can afford. Maybe the guys who haven't done it yet but might do it this year. The Xavier Hendersons and the D2 transfer, wide receiver transfer, Jaquai, and Traquan Fagans even. But they do want to keep. I think Miami wants to keep this whole transfer process under wraps. They don't want other programs to know what they're offering, who they're after, because it just becomes a bidding war at some point. And the less that's out there publicly, the better. And fans are all posting, where's the portal board? We want to know who Miami's after. Like, Miami doesn't want it out there. It doesn't behoove Miami to have it out there. And if you're a Miami fan, you should not be asking that. You should be saying, please don't tell us who Miami's after in the portal, because the truth is, once Miami gets these guys and agrees to an NIL deal, obviously Miami can't do the NIL deal, but whoever is behind the scenes at Miami doing the NIL deal, whether it's a collective or whoever, that's the bottom line. Miami has to be able to not just get these guys to want to come here, but afford them. And the affordability, it comes in where, if it's public that Miami's after this guy, and, you don't want the information out there. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? In this new NIL world, it's not great for fans. Players come and go. It's all about the money. It's a different way. You have to root for a team now instead of rooting for a guy who signs and is stuck here for 3 to 5 years. You just root for the team each season. Like it's an NFL team, and you just have to root each season. You just have to adjust how you're rooting for this team, and you're going to have every year, it seems like now, just in this, I don't love it, but it seems like at Miami right now, you're going to be getting 8 to 15 transfers in addition to 20 new freshmen every year. And then the freshmen that don't work out leave or ask to leave. You bring in new transfers again. Like, I would rather they build it through recruiting, but it's unfortunately it's just this never-ending cycle, because once you start taking 10 or 15 transfers for a period of 3 to 4 years, which we've seen now in a row, you're basically talking about not building depth through recruiting, and now you have to keep replenishing through the portal every year, because that's how Miami's been built right now, and it's not been built well. And Mario has decided to go the route of trying to win now, which to do that, you have to go through the portal. And that means you're taking up 10 to 15 scholarships last year and this year with portal guys who are here for 1 to 3 years, not 3 to 4 years, hypothetically, you can get them to stick here. And that's not the way to develop a program long term. I'm sorry, but that's what Mario's trying to do.
But you know, let's talk about what you're saying here. And like, I don't think that it's such the negative that you do, because like Jabari Ishmael, okay, he hasn't played a second at Miami. He's been hurt the entire time he's here. He's been taking up a scholarship. Probably lasted this long because his father works in the program, and they can't afford that anymore. You know, he's had the time. I'm assuming he's probably graduating by now, and you know, they need that scholarship.
Can I just stop you, because you're not even looking at it through the correct lens. It's not that Jabari Ishmael is gone. It's how do you fill that open roster spot? I'm saying fill it with another recruit. I'm saying fill it with a top recruit in 2024 or 2025. You're saying take a transfer who's here for 1 to 3 years. It's just a different philosophy. I would do it one way and suffer through a 5 and 7 year that they had anyway. With
Jaden Wayne, for example.
Say again?
Let's say you're replacing him with Ruben Baden or Jaden Wayne.
Correct. What's
wrong with that?
That's what I wanted.
Well, that's what you're doing.
You're saying to replace him through the transfer portal. What's the difference?
No, it's all semantics.
No, it's not.
It is. Think about
Someone's
it.
here 1 to 3 years from a different program.
You have 85 scholarships, okay? What difference does it make if you're bringing in defensive ends from the portal or traditional recruiting?
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding at all. Think about it. Let's say they didn't take Jaden Wayne, and then now instead they're taking a transfer defensive end. What difference does it make? So they took Jaden Wayne, they took Ruben Bain, they have enough defensive ends. They don't need to be using a scholarship for Jabari Ishmael at this point.
Because right now they're not taking different. They took Branson Dean and Thomas Gore on the defensive line as transfers. Like, to me, I'd rather have a 4 or 5 star defensive lineman. It depends who you're taking. If you're taking free agents, it's one thing. I don't want transfers. They're taking transfers, Gary.
Beats out Jared Harrison Hunt.
I don't care. I'd rather have a freshman 5 star or 4 star, because these guys can recruit the heck out of things. I'd rather have a 4 star, 5 star next season in 2024.
It doesn't matter anymore. Let me throw out another example.
If they take Thomas Gore and Branson Dean, even for 1 year, 2 years, whatever they're here, like, that's scholarships out of the 85. Every one of those 85 spots is extremely valuable for recruiting. You know, they could have taken an extra guy hypothetically in 2023. They could take an extra guy in 2024. You save those spots. It's okay to have open spots once in a while too.
I think you're missing the boat on this. I'll keep giving you examples. All right, let's say they bring in Xavier Henderson, and we have a story on the website this morning making the argument that he's the guy they should bring in. We are expecting that one to happen, okay? He is the former Columbus High receiver who went to the University of Florida, has played at Florida a couple of years, I believe has 2 years eligibility left. Right. And Miami, I believe, is going to get him in the transfer portal. Okay, now, as Matt stated, they've also been very close to a commitment based on our info with Jaquai Jackson, the Division II wide receiver that visited a few weeks ago. We think there's a very good chance that happens. Now, so Matt, let's say you got to create 2 slots for those 2 guys because you think they're better than what you're playing with. So let's say, just to throw out examples that I'm not saying this is going to happen because we don't know. But let's say you had to take 2 receivers who aren't playing at all and tell them, hey, listen, it's not working out. You're not going to get your scholarship.
You keep.
Why is that a negative?
Because
you bring in better players.
Because you keep looking at it through the wrong lens. I'm not talking about trying to win. You keep looking at it through, I got to win this year. I'm trying to say, let's build a program that's going to be a championship program in 3 years and sustainably be a championship program every single year thereafter. What I'm trying to explain to you, which you just don't seem to understand, is to build that through the portal is almost impossible, because if you're taking 10 guys in the portal every year over
exclusively, you're doing both. You're walking and you're chewing.
So how many?
Colette,
so how many portal guys you take in a year? Give me a number.
It doesn't. It's whatever you need.
So pick it. They're doing 10 right now.
If you take Xavier Henderson,
they're averaging. So they're averaging 10.
Listen, Matt. It doesn't stop you from developing Ray Joseph. It doesn't.
It stops you from developing.
If you're stop you from developing Isaiah Horton, who had.
You still don't understand. Like, how do you not understand how numbers work? You have 85. You take 10 guys a year. Maybe 3 or 4 of them are graduate transfers. Great. Those would be open spots anyway. I have no problem with that. Okay. So the D2 kid's gone after a year, fine. Xavier Henderson, maybe he's great, in which case you have him for 2 years. All right, whatever. But if you're going 8 wins, 9 wins, those 2 years that he's great, I don't need that. Those 2 years, I'd rather have a receiver that is Ray Joseph, that is Robbie Washington. Get 2 more of those guys.
Yeah, if they win 5 games,
and they're here for 3, and they're here for 3 to 5 years instead of a guy who comes in and is here for a year or 2. I think that's how you win championships long term. Because those guys are here. Let me just finish. Can I finish? I can't finish one thought. Because Mario keeps talking about the culture. It's really hard to build a culture with 10 guys every year that are brand new on the roster, that are coming from different programs that haven't been in Miami's culture. They have to learn it, and they have to learn it and then teach it, right? So it takes a while to learn this culture. This is not just like, oh, okay, you go to high school and you learn how you're supposed to behave. This is really something that, Mario, it's ingrained in you, and it takes time. And it doesn't just even take a year. It could take 2 or more years for these guys to really buy into the culture. And then they teach it to the ones below them. A guy's here a year or 2. How do you expect them to teach a culture to younger guys? It doesn't happen. And if you look right now, this roster is very young. It was very young last year, and they're still taking 10 transfers on average a year. Over 4 years, if you take a sophomore, a junior who is a transfer, okay, and they're not a free agent, there's a regular transfer, whatever. I mean, you're filling up your roster over a 3, 4, 5 year span. You're wasting 20 scholarships at least that could have been true freshmen and be developed into that system, into that culture, and then teach it to other kids. Instead of you're here a year or 2 and you're gone. You can't build culture through the portal. Unless you're getting free agents, you're going to win 8 games, maybe 9 games instead of 7 games, whatever. I'd rather have those guys here teaching the culture, being developed for 3 to 5 years, winning championships with the right guys, with the right NIL program, with the right recruiting. Forget the portal so much. And then when you're there, now you look at the portal. Now it's like, okay, this guy went to the NFL as a first-round pick early. We're going to fill him with these 3 free, with this free agent, because then you can afford to get the 2 or 3 free agents you need, not 10. They're trying to spread all their money over 10 guys right now. When you're at that point, after you develop it through recruiting, you only need 2 or 3 guys a year to fill the guys going to the NFL early through the portal where you don't have guys behind them. And there's only going to be a couple of spots that happens when you're recruiting correctly, developing correctly, and have the correct culture. Now you can afford them with a $2.5 million budget, which is what they're trying to do for their program. Okay? But right now you can't, you're not getting the top guys when you need 6 to 9 guys in the same budget. When you can spend it on 2 or 3 guys instead, once you're at that level, it's a whole different ballgame. It's self-sustaining. You're in the playoffs every year. The system right now will not work long term. Maybe it'll happen 1 year, like Michigan State 1 year, whatever, TCU 1 year. You get lucky 1 year, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh!" But it's not sustainable through the portal. It's just not.
If they take your approach and they only win 5 games again next year, I mean, this fan base is going to go out of its freaking mind.
Mario screwed up last year. He'll tell you he screwed up. He should not have taken how many 11 transfers last year. That was a mistake. He should have clearly, and I said it then. I said he should have clearly
won 3 games if he didn't.
I don't care. He should have clearly said, "Here's what we're doing. Here's the plan. We're gonna have a tough season, but we're gonna build this." Instead, he did what Manny Diaz had been doing. He tried to build it through the portal because he knew it wasn't good enough, and you end up with 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins. I don't want 7 or 8 or even 9 wins. I want 11 wins. I want 12 wins. This is not an 11-win team. Why are you filling up spots with the portal right now? Save the money. Take recruits. Figure it out for 2 to 3, 4 years from now. I don't need these guys coming in for a 2 to 9-win team.
It's very hard to go from a program that's at the level of 4 or 5 wins to 11 wins in one swoop.
Alabama was a 5 or 6 win team before Saban came in, right? It's not abnormal for a coach to come in with a program, coaches come in when someone's fired because that program sucks, because that program failed, because that coaching staff didn't instill its culture. You're not expected to win 10 games your first year. And these coaches come in and they feel this pressure. I got to win now. That was the mistake Mario made last year, and it's okay.
So let's say they get Henderson like we think they will.
It doesn't do much for me.
You make the wide receiver room better
for a year or two. Yeah, for a year or two, and it costs you a recruit next year. Great. So if they don't win 11 games this year or next year, it costs them a recruit in the class of 2024. That's all it did for me.
It cost them a recruit next year if, say, and I don't want to name names of current players.
Xavier Henderson will still be on the roster a year from now. That means it's costing them a recruiting spot.
Somebody else might not be.
So what? You still only have 85. Why are you replacing? Whether the other person's not there or not, Xavier didn't have to be there either. That's another extra spot. Like, what are you talking about? It's just math. 80 plus 1 is 81. 82 plus 1 is 83. It's still an extra spot. Like, what are you talking about? It's an extra spot no matter what.
Because if you're removing a piece, which is a number towards the 85, and replacing it with another, you're not setting yourself back in the future.
You're wrong, because these can be freshmen and redshirt freshmen and sophomores. You don't know how a guy's going to develop who's a redshirt freshman or a true sophomore or redshirt sophomore. Even they have 2 more years left to develop. They're young gentlemen.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what
you say. It doesn't matter. They're winning 6 games. They're winning 5 games. It doesn't matter. Take all the transfers. Keep doing what Manny Diaz did. Manny Diaz got fired because he was a transfer portal king. I don't want Mario to be the transfer portal king. I want him to be the recruiting king, like Georgia, like
recruiting king. Ohio State better win more than 5.
Like Alabama, win in recruiting, and then
win more than 5 games. You need players.
You can win 8 or 9 games this year with the transfers they're trying to get. That doesn't do it for me. I don't need 8 or 9 win teams that are going to keep these guys who are winning 8 or 9 games like on the roster. I want to rebuild through recruiting. So it's just a different philosophy, Gary. You want to rebuild through transfers and recruiting. I just want to do it through recruiting, and then when you get there, then you add some transfers as you need them.
I'm sorry. I want Matt Lee as my center instead of Ryan Rodriguez, and nothing against Ryan. Ryan's a young player. We'll see how his career goes.
First of all, Matt Lee, Ja'Kai Clark would have stayed, but whatever. I'm not going to.
I would rather have Matt Lee than Ja'Kai Clark. I don't think there is a comparison.
Right. But you know what? You save the money that you paid to Matt Lee. You keep it in the war chest. You build the program through recruiting. You have a ton of money left, and then you're a championship team. Whatever, man. They're throwing money away. If they don't win 9, 10, 11 games, and they're just throwing money at these guys and all them transfer portal guys, it's a failure. If you don't win 11 or 12 games in the next couple of years, like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if we're sitting here, Gary, and we're talking about an 8 or 9 win team, or maybe even a 10-win team that's not in the playoffs, which they should be in the playoffs with 10 wins. But if you're not a playoff team, in 2 to 3 years, you're going to be saying, the portal killed Miami. The portal was a big mistake. They should have done it through recruiting. And guess what? If they keep taking 10 guys in the portal every year, that's the conversation we'll be having.
Okay, but remember, the playoff is expanding.
I know. That's why I said 10 wins, they might make the playoffs.
That's right. It's not going to be a Final Four anymore.
I literally just said if they make 10 wins, maybe they'll make the playoffs.
It's going to be easier to make the playoffs.
But this year if they take 6 more transfers this year to 9 more transfers than they already have, you got a team full of transfers, man. Like, that's just not for me. It's just a difference of opinion. Other people will disagree with me. It's fine. That's just how I feel.
What if it gets 8, 9 wins and it improves recruiting in December?
I don't understand how it would improve recruiting. The guy recruits like crazy no matter what.
Players want to see guys developing, and they want to see production on the field.
Well,
if you don't have good enough players, you're not going to be putting either picture in front of them.
That will not hurt recruiting, because recruiting right now is all about NIL and track record. What will kill recruiting, though, is if the fan base rebels against Mario, and that's what recruits see. If this starts to feel like a disaster, that's the problem, which is why I just wish you can't go back in time, but I feel like Mario is a little disingenuous on understanding his own roster. I think fans were upset last year because they expected a 10-win team for whatever reason when he took all these transfers, and everyone was like, talking about how great the team was, how great the players were. And I mean, this year, I'm happy that at least people who are reasonable like myself and other reporters other than you are saying, listen, these are actual reasonable expectations for this team. Now, can they do better? Yes. Could they be worse than what we're saying? Of course. But I think 8 wins is probably the benchmark for this team. Somewhere between 7 and 9 wins is about what most people would expect from this program, which does not get you to the ACC championship game, does not get you to the playoffs, gets you to a second-tier bowl game. And like, if you want to take 9 to 11 transfers and stack your program with 15 transfers to 20 transfers on this roster, like, that's for you, Gary. That's not for me. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right, I don't think we're ever going to agree on this on the subject. We always get into these debates when it comes to transfers. I see their value.
Mario's one of the best recruiters in the country. Why should he go to the portal? He's not a portal guy. He's a recruiter.
Because
that's what he does best. Let him do what he does best. Like, if you're the greatest chef in the world,
the going into the transfer portal right now in May is not going to stop them from trying to recruit the best players in December. I don't know why you don't see that.
Let me put it this way.
Man.
I'm going to put it in terms you can understand, okay? You go to Hooters, and Hooters has the best chef in the world. He's great at cooking food, but they're like, you know what? Today you're just going to serve tables. And they send this guy out in his little bikini to serve tables, because that's what you're asking Mario to do. Mario's greatest strength is his recruiting, not paying guys in NIL to be transfers.
What chef is going to put at Hooters is going to put on a Speedo and go parading around the restaurant?
That's what you're asking Mario to do.
You're better. That's a horrible analogy.
If you want Mario to build a team through the transfer portal, he's basically wearing a bikini parading around Hooters, because that's not his strength. His strength is recruiting. He is a nonstop recruiter from the time a student athlete's a freshman or a sophomore, builds bonds with the families, gets 4- and 5-star recruits left and right, discovers 3-stars, which we've been having this year, and that can be outstanding players. And like, that's his strength. That's his strength. There's no doubt about it. Portal is not his strength. The portal is not going to be Miami's answer, because Miami can't compete money-wise either with the major state schools. I can't stop looking at you. The major state schools who have way bigger enrollment and way bigger alumni bases. It's just tough to compete with these, these gatherings of money, whatever you want to call them, conglomerates of money they're putting together. I mean, they can literally market to their boosters.
Screw Parrot Head. You're getting pink flamingos for that opinion. When you start creating visuals for everybody at 5 o'clock in the morning of Mario Cristobal in a Speedo walking around Hooters, and you're trying to equate it to recruiting, which, by the way, the transfer portal is recruiting.
Let me ask you, who's been more right or more wrong the last couple of years on this show talking about how this program is going to be and the transfer portal and how it's been working? It's clearly been, I mean, I hate to toot my own horn, but clearly you have not been.
Somebody created a thread on our message board yesterday comparing Manny Diaz and Mario in the portal. And it was kind of interesting because Manny Diaz, as bad as he was in so many ways, I mean, really didn't do a terrible job in the transfer portal. I mean, when you look at some of the guys he brought in, KJ Osborne.
Right. And that proves my point. How good were the teams with Manny Diaz with all these amazing transfer guys, Gary? That proves my point. They tried it. They got all these amazing transfer guys, and the team still sucked. So how about doing it through recruiting, Gary? It's literally been proved to your face covering this team, and you still won't say it.
No, here's what I think we can agree on. They got to recruit better, and they're trying to. Okay? The better they recruit as they move forward, now that they've cleaned out the roster, which I think this new wave here that's going to evolve in the next week or so, I feel comfortable saying the roster purge is over. Okay, it's over after this. You're talking about 50+ players that have been, recycled before their eligibility was up here at Miami. That's a lot, man. That is a serious roster purge, and I feel pretty comfortable saying that after this, it's done. Okay, the purge is over, and now there should be improvement and a movement more towards what Matt wants, and will make him happy, and will.
First of all, the purge is over. They have eight seniors on this roster. What are you talking about? The purge is over. They're only going to bring in 8 recruits next cycle. Like, what are you even talking about?
You guys will leave. Tyler Van Dyke will probably leave and go into the NFL. I mean, some guys will.
Yeah. The purge is over. They're going to take 8 recruits, 9 recruits.
No, because some guys will take themselves to the portal if they're not playing. My point is that I think that they are going to be pretty much done sending guys packing. I think that the roster is getting to the point where it's in a much better place. I think there's still 9-10 guys on the team right now that they can afford to lose very easily. But that's a lot better than 30 or 40 like we had a little more than a year ago. So I think they're moving in the right direction. I think the roster is getting better. We will see how that equates to wins and losses this year. But moving on to other things that we have on the website today, we've started to take a look, kind of like the forgotten guys on this football team are the late entries, the summer arrivals that are going to be coming onto campus here, starting, I guess, in a few weeks now, Matt. And so we have started updating these guys for you guys just to, what have they been up to lately? How are they looking in terms of their off-season workouts? What are they looking forward to about arriving on campus? So we've given you updates the last few days on offensive lineman Frankie Tinalau, linebacker Marcellus Pulliam, and a defensive tackle that I think, as hard as it is for a true freshman to get in the mix on the defensive line, could come in like gangbusters and maybe earn himself some playing time this year. And that's Joshua Horton. And Matt, you've taken on this project. You spoke to those guys. You're speaking to others. Let's talk about Joshua Horton in particular. What did you find out from him in terms of how he's getting ready to be a Miami Hurricane?
Well, I mean, he's going to have to transfer in a year or two to be able to take some more transfers, according to you, right? I'm just double checking. Isn't that your theory?
Not Joshua Horton.
So yeah, Horton. The coaches are really high on Horton. I personally think he'll be in the 2 deep this year. They just have such thin depth. He's big, athletic, quick for his size. He weighs the same weight. He told me he weighs the same weight he did in high school, 285, but that he's rebuilt himself, so it's like a different weight, so to speak. He's sort of slimmed down. So I'm happy that he's doing that. He's working hard. He's coming in June 18th, which is a shame he can't come earlier for Summer B, because that's actually a little bit of a problem. People think, oh, okay, a couple of
Summer A, he's coming for Summer B.
Summer B, yeah, he can't come for May, so he's coming in June 18th. So that's a big difference, that extra month. It's not ideal, but the good news is the coach is going to just let him basically just run that way, just run at the quarterback. He's there, you just go get him, So I'll have to teach him a few things, but I imagine that he will be a good enough run stopper, even as a true freshman strength-wise, that they can utilize him. Because, I mean, I know that the coaches, sort of liked what Branson Dean did. Thomas Gore just looks like he's not going to be able to be much of a help. And then, Jared Harrison Hunt's always hurt. And Leonard Taylor, as good as he can be, he's been very inconsistent. So there's so many questions of defensive tackle. Anything that Horton can give them is going to be huge. So when he gets in, they need him to be basically ready to hit the ground running, so to speak. But he's only going to have a couple months before fall camp, right? Half of June and then all of July, so a month and a half really to get ready, which is not a lot of time. So I'm very curious when we get out there in August to sort of see this team, how he looks in particular, because I think he's going to be one of the keys for this if this team can really, win 8 or 9 games. Because if other teams are going to be just able to run up the middle, and I heard all spring that was a problem, that Miami's offense, just whenever they wanted to run up the middle, they could just pick up big chunk yards up the middle against this defense, So I think they're going to use a lot of Ruben Bain in passing downs at tackle. We already saw it in the spring game. I think they're going to have to use Akeem Mesidor a lot, even though he doesn't like doing it at tackle. And I think that they're going to have to use. Obviously, they're going to have Taylor starting, and they're going to have to use certainly Horton. So outside of that, and Branson Dean, I just don't see a lot of tackle. It's a concern area for sure. And we'll see what Landscaper does. Maybe he'll do a lot of blitzes up the middle with James Williams at linebacker, right, Gary?
I think it's a shame that, I wouldn't be shocked, man. I'll tell you. If the linebackers were Francisco Magoa and James Williams, I would not be shocked in the least. But we'll see. We'll see how everything plays out. But anyway, you talk about defensive tackles, and I was watching Bear Alexander, who was a defensive tackle, Miami recruit out of high school. He went to Georgia, went into the transfer portal, went to USC yesterday. I mean, imagine if a guy like that had just wanted to come to Miami. I think he could have changed so much, including your opinion of the transfer portal, because he could have made that kind of impact. But there's nobody else out there that's going to just solve this problem with the snap of a finger, that at least that we've seen. So it's going to be what it is going to be. But we did want to start bringing you guys updates on some of these guys that have not been on campus yet, but that will be coming on campus in the coming weeks, and we will continue doing that for you. All right, shifting gears to recruiting. Obviously, we have our usual steady stream of recruiting updates for you, and I won't go through all of them, but you know, there were a lot of visitors who came for the spring game. We've been trying to catch up with all of them in sequential fashion. You got an update from four-star defensive lineman Jericho Johnson on the website. 2024 cornerback Jamari Howard from Hialeah Westland. He's been committed to Michigan State since September. That has not stopped Miami from pushing for him. He's the number 50 prospect in the On 300. He was at the spring game. We updated his status. So many more. Washington St. Vincent Pallotti linebacker Gabriel Williams. He's got more than 30 offers. He's one of the most sought after defensive prospects in the country. We've got an update on him. So make sure you guys continue to check out those updates. What else? We've got baseball updates from the weekend series with Georgia Tech. Miami took 2 of 3. Jim Martz talked to a lot of fans about their expectations for the program and wrote a unique column like only Jim can. Make sure that you check that out on the website as well. And beyond that, man, we're all over the transfer portal this week. The coaches go on the road recruiting. Let's not forget that. It is the spring evaluation period in the recruiting calendar. And for the next, I believe it's 5 weeks, the coaches will be on the road visiting high schools and doing evaluation visits on players all across the country. We will bring you as much coverage on that as we possibly can. So that's going to do it for Good Morning CaneSport for today. If you like the show, like listening to the foolishness of Matt Shodell, like me trying to keep a sense of reality to the conversation, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And more than anything, your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every day. So if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please become one sooner rather than later. We wholeheartedly appreciate it. It allows us to keep reinvesting and expanding our coverage for the benefit of you guys. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you once again for joining us, everybody, and we will see you next time.